Hi, everyone. My name is Hazel Rhodes, and I'm a postdoctoral associate and future faculty at the University of Minnesota in the Department of German, Nordic, Slavic, and Dutch. I'm happy to have this opportunity to share my dissertation project with you, which I completed in the spring of 2024 at Columbia University. The title of my dissertation is Tracing Transgender Feeling in Sexual Modernism: Gender and Queer Affinities in Early 20th Century German Literature and Science. My dissertation examines how gender variation, and specifically transgender feeling, emerged as vital motivators for both scientific and artistic explorations of human personhood and social expressions of marginality in German-speaking culture in the early 20th century. My research goal was to illustrate how concepts of gender variation and multiplicity served as a generative problem for modernist practitioners of sexual science and as a creative impulse and figural resource for modernist literary and artistic innovations. The feedback between the fields of literature and sexual science allowed for novel social categories to develop for the first time in a period where designations like transgender were not yet in use as stable identities or diagnoses, but nevertheless circulated in more diffuse ways in culture through experiences of gender alterity. I argue that a broader notion of gender variation and incongruence was articulated in the early 20th century than are more particular models for transgender identity expressed today. And I assert that these phenomena were instrumental for the development of modernist movements at large, an influence that the scholarly literature on the topic has tended to overlook or outright deny at the level of interpretation and analysis. I developed my argument through a reading practice attuned to transgender feeling and its affective history in German literature and sexual science, which draws on methodologies from affect, gender, queer, and cultural studies, as well as queer phenomenology and historiography. By focusing on trans feeling as a more expansive, democratized notion and as a heuristic that unites multiple forms of gender variant experience, including some that have disappeared or might feel obsolete to us today, my project intervenes in the more limited contemporary understanding of transgender identity as a minority political, legal, and diagnostic category. I show how experiences of gender incongruence and intermediacy are more prevalent in the modern period than has been typically conceived, even for people who appear to fit normative expectations of sex-gender alignment, including some prominent figures in the modern German literary canon, like Rainer Maria Rilke and Elsa Lasker-Schüler. My close reading and analysis of their writing, such as Rilke's novel Die Aufzeichnungen des Malte Lauritz Brigger and Lasker-Schüler's experimental epistolary novel Mein Herz, form the centerpiece of my dissertation. Each of these authors maintained enduring cross-gender attachments in their work and life that informed their literary expressions of alterity. Rilke to femininity and to a feminine poetic voice, and Lasker-Schüler to a masculine persona, Prince Yusuf, marked by racial difference and anachronism to modern German society. In these chapters, I highlight how interpretations of the work and biographies of both Rilke and Lasker-Schüler have intentionally disavowed these gender variant expressions as characteristically trans. And thus, I call for a reassessment of the role that trans feelings, understood broadly, played as creative and experimental impulses in modernist literary practices at large, which is work that I hope to continue in my future scholarship. So thank you for listening, and thank you to the GSA for inviting me to share my work with you today.